Derek, a friend of mine, and Kyle, another friend of mine, went to a Chinese restaurant. I drove my car, they drove their car, and it was a buffet, all-you-could-eat lunch buffet, because I was a little chubby back then, not like my svelte self at 55 years old. And I remember we ate, and I was in college, so I did not have a lot of money. But I felt the waiter certainly deserved a tip, because even though it was a buffet, and you don't normally tip at buffets, I was appreciative they would refill our water glasses and was very attentive. So I happened to have in my pocket of my pants like $1.25 or so in pennies. Don't ask me why I had $1.25 in pennies in my pocket. I don't remember. But I remember putting them on the table and went out to pay my bill. Got to the cash register, paid for it. And it was a lot of pennies. If you've never had 125 pennies spread out on a table, I mean, it wasn't spread all over the table. It was just sort of like in a pile by where I sat, which is important because after I paid my bill, I go out to my car and I'm about to unlock it, and I see Kyle and Derek have come out, and Kyle had a Firebird, cherry red Firebird. They had just paid for it, brand new. Well, brand new used. It looked very good. It was the same car I farted in when he first said, "Hey, you want to go for a ride in my car?" And I was like, "Sure." And we went about a quarter of a mile before I just went, and Kyle's like, "You shit in my car." And I said, No, that was just a fart. He goes, "I haven't even done that. It still has the new car." Well, it had the new car smell, but he loved that car. A lot of bad things happened to it, including this. As I'm about to get in my car, I hear somebody shouting in Oriental talk. I mean, it could have been Chinese, it could have been Korean, I have no idea, but it was, and I see the waiter who had worked at our table bringing us water and stuff. He comes outside, and I just remember him saying, and he's really quite red-faced, which is hilarious on a Chinese guy because you don't normally see them change color to red, but his face was red, and he was mad. He's just screaming at Kyle, "I don't need your stinking pennies!" And he starts throwing them on the hood of his car, and they're bouncing all over the thing, and Kyle's like, "Da, da, da, da," and I'm on the other side of the parking lot, this other side nearby, and I just see this going, Kyle's so mad, and he's so confused because he didn't leave any tip at all. And as a matter of fact, after the guy throws $1.25 worth of pennies all over his car, and I mean throws, so there had to be some dings and scratches on the hood of his new Firebird. I remember as the last of the pennies were rolling off the hood and stuff, Kyle turns to the waiter guy and says, "Hey, I didn't leave any tip. Why are you mad at me?" And I thought, he's probably going to hurt him now because he didn't leave any tip. But I just remember about that point, I've already started my car and I started driving out of the parking lot pointing at Kyle. He was so mad.
Hey, using the...
Oh, that's my son. He likes to interrupt when we're doing stuff. But
are you using
we'll pause for now.
We're
going to pause for now. I'll be right back with you. Billy, put your pants on. He did bring up the story of my dad, and he had a nice garage, and he'd work on a 1957 Chevy. I was 12 or 13 years old, and he called upstairs to me saying, "Son," and I'm like, "Yeah, Dad?" He goes, "Bring me a Coke." And I was like, "All right." And so I looked through the kitchen, and there's no Coca-Cola in the house, none. And so I come downstairs saying, "We don't have any Coca-Cola." My dad's like, "I went to the grocery store. I know we bought some Coca-Cola. Go look again." So I'm like, "Oh, okay, sure." So I go back upstairs, and about 5 years earlier, they had produced these limited edition Coach Bear Bryant Coca-Cola bottles. football's winningest coach or something like that. And they were on the mantle over the fireplace. And I looked at the bottle thinking, it's Coke. And so I take one of these 5-year-old bottles of Coke off the shelf and take it into the kitchen, put ice in a glass, pop open the lid. And, you know, I didn't think anything about there not being any carbonation or, you know, the psh sound. Nothing. It was just nothing. So I pour it into the glass. Again, no bubbles. And a sane person, an intelligent sane person, would have realized this had gone flat probably 3 years earlier. But I didn't realize it. So I pour it into the glass, take it down to my dad. And it's like, I told you we had more Coke in the house. And I say Diet Coke, but it's just regular Coca-Cola. And I said, well, you're right. And I hand him the glass of Coke and look at the engine of his car. We got the hood up. And I'm like, what you working on? He goes, trying to change this. And he's talked about spark plugs or something. And he starts chugging the drink. So I'm sort of looking this way, and he makes this noise. And I was like, what? And I turn, and he's just got this horrified look on his face, and I thought he was having a heart attack or something. And he just starts spewing. He's like sort of spitting and sort of throwing up all over the workbench. And when he could finally breathe, he looks like, what the hell is this? I think you probably used a stronger word than what the hell is this, but I said, oh, the Coke on the mantelpiece. And he goes, you mean the bottles that have been sitting up there for 5 years? And I said, yeah. And he just, go away. That was what he said. He just, go away. That was one of his favorite things to say to me when I did something embarrassingly stupid. But my dad and I, we had a great relationship when I was growing up. I remember when we were in Panama City Beach, Florida. We were at a hotel and at the pool. Shorter version story. My dad goes, hey, son. He called me son. And he goes, son, watch me swim across the pool underwater. And I'm like sitting on the edge of the pool. And he swims to the other side, and I can see him under the water. And he's doing old man swim, which would be like me swimming today. And he goes all the way across the pool underwater. And I see him, and I'm thinking, oh, he should come up for air because he's about to hit and he hits the side of the pool with his head. And I'm like, oh. And he comes up. I shouldn't laugh, but I did at the time too. He comes up sputtering for air, and he's got this gaseous cut right on his forehead. Blood's trickling down into his eyes. And he's like, son, help me, I can't see, I'm bleeding. And of course me, much like my son would do today, I'm just sitting there going, you're bleeding, Dad. And I just remember he wasn't happy about that either. Some dads you can't please. So I didn't have many friends when I was in college, but occasionally they'd come over to the house. I was still living at home. My parents had a hot tub on the back porch, and being nerdy types, we were playing Dungeons and Dragons till like 2 or 3 in the morning. And I remember we were wrapping up, and I think we had each gotten a beer. There was Derek, Mark, and me. Mark has since passed on. Probably not related to what I'm about to tell you happened with Mark. Because I said, hey, you know, the hot tub is heated up. We can go in the hot tub. And Derek's like, yeah, I don't want to get in the hot tub with a couple of dudes. And Mark's like, I don't care. And he's got his beer, and I think he pulled off his pants and in his underwear jumps into the hot tub, and he's sort of laying back, all relaxed, and he's like, oh, this feels good. And yeah, hot tub. So of course it felt good at 2 a.m. And I can't remember if I did the underwear thing or went and got a bathing suit on, but I remember the hot tub was set on top of the deck. And so to get in, you had to lift your leg up and over and into the hot tub. I liked Mark. I liked Mark a lot when he was alive. I liked him a lot back then. But he never really forgave me for what happened. I lifted my leg up, and you gotta remember, Mark's just all relaxed. I think he'd probably had a beer or two earlier. And I lifted my leg up, and I put my foot down, and I started to stand up with all my weight inside the hot tub. Thing I didn't know is my foot was squarely planted on Mark's testicles. Balls, for people that don't know what testicles are. So I hear him make a gasping, and I was like looking at him, and I'm still trying to get my other leg in, so all my weight, 230, 250 pounds of big Bill standing on his testicles, and I couldn't figure out what was wrong. I was like, okay? He's like a bug pinned inside the hot tub because he can't move. And I just remember going, your face looks funny, because it was very bad for him. And when I finally heard him say, God damn it, Beeb, get off my damn balls! And I'm like, because he was pinned under there and he couldn't move. And he Derek's like, Beeb, get off his balls! And I'm like, oh, and I was laughing so hard because his reaction was quite amusing that I started seeing spots, and I was like, blah! And I was sort of paralyzed. I'm sure Mark thought I was standing on his testicles for 10 to 12 seconds at least because I was a dick. But in reality, I was paralyzed with laughter, and I couldn't breathe. And finally, I had to stagger back out of the hot tub and lifted my foot off of his testicles. And I remember he was unhappy with me for quite a while after that. And later he told Derek later, if I hadn't been in so much pain and I needed to go home so bad, I would have killed Bill right there. Yeah, I probably deserved it. Good times. But back around 1977, 76, I was 10 years old, 11 years old, and my father had his 1957 Chevy that he had been restoring. It was in very, very good shape. Engine ran like a top. And that was on one side of the garage. It was a two-car garage. And on the other side, there was a workbench full of sharp metal things and dangerous things that my dad told me to always stay away from because I was clumsy. And my older stepbrother, he had a little motorbike, a little trail bike, and it was like very small. And they were going to throw it out to the curb and let somebody come get it. And I remember saying, hey, can I have it? And they're like, it doesn't run, it doesn't start, it won't go. And me being me, I said, oh, I can get it to start. And bear in mind, I've never been on a motorcycle before, didn't know what I was doing, but the starter was on the side of it, and you'd sit on the seat and you'd jump up and down with your leg to try to start the motor. And my dad, he's sort of watching me while doing something under the hood of his car, and the motorcycle was facing inside the garage. If it had been facing outside the garage when it finally started, which it did to my utter shock and amazement, if it had been facing going outside the garage, this would be a much better story for me. Because as I was cranking it, I also had my hand on the throttle, opening it as wide as it would go. And when it finally did start, nobody was more surprised than me. And I had that 2-second period where I thought, if I turn it left, I'll hit my dad's 57 Chevy that he just got finished restoring, new paint and all that good stuff. That's probably not a good thing. Or I could turn right and hit the workbench full of sharp metal things, which would not be good either. So I just drove it straight into the concrete wall cinder block wall and hit. I don't know how fast I was going, but my testicles were just, ah! And the bike, when it hit the wall, it bounced back and started going forward again. So it didn't just hit my testicles, didn't just get rammed into it once or twice into the motorcycle assembly. It was multiple times before my dad came over and shut off the motorcycle, and I'm just like, and I just remember sort of lying on the cement of the garage going, throw it out. Throw it out. I don't ever want to ride that thing again. Ever. Throw it out. So they threw it out. And my testicles survived. A lot of my stories have to do with testicles. Don't know why.